So good morning, welcome to Silver Creek Church. This is a good day to be here together. And I think today is one of those days that takes on a whole new meaning, dashing through the snow in a one-horse Chevrolet. Is that how that Yupper song went? Man, I mean, like, you know, and I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like the snowstorms always come on Saturdays, Saturday nights. I was telling somebody that earlier. I'm like, it always happens on Saturday nights. What's up? Lord, do you know what's happening here? I don't know, but maybe it's to just say, hey, it's a little extra work, but hopefully it's worth your coming in this far. And for those of you online, we're going to be presenting this. You'll be seeing this a day later, or whatever day you happen to be watching. But for those in our live studio audience, thank you for trudging through the snow and making it here today to join us. There's a lot of us that didn't make it in person, but it's good that we're here together. So we're at church, and it's funny that we start off with that because that's what we're talking about today is church. Like, what is it about church that, you know, that makes one important to go to versus another? Or maybe some people might say makes one right and one wrong. Is that possible? What is it? So we're going to dive into that today, and frankly, we're going to dive into what Silver Creek Church is all about and why we started this church and what our core beliefs and our values are for our church here. We got to start off by saying this though. I'm going to use the word church a lot, but when the scriptures were written, the term church was actually ecclesia. That was the term. It was for a gathering of people. And over the time, the translations were changed up, and now what we use today, the word church, that's what we find in our Bibles is the word church. Well, it can cause some confusion because it's one of those words that has a couple meanings, right? It's like it's a place, it's a building, but it's also a group. And to make it even more confusing, sometimes you'll hear people talking about the corporate church, meaning every believer, every Christian who believes all over the world, like everyone makes up one big church, and then there's individual churches that meet in gatherings on a morning like today all over the world. So we're the ecclesia, we're the gathering of believers. And when we started Silver Creek Church, the one thing that I was praying about was, Lord, guide us on how to do this the right way. I want to be able to know that, God, we're doing this the way you want this done. The world doesn't need just another church. I mean, there's a lot of churches to choose from in all over the different places. So what is it we can do to know that we're doing the right thing for God in this place that he's called us to be? So I think it's important to examine ourselves now and then, time and time, and ask ourselves tough questions. I like to surround myself with people that I have accountability with. I think that's one of the paramount things of a pastor is to keep yourself accountable. To have people who can say, I don't know about that. And not just people who are just like, yes, okay, whatever you say, sir. Yes, sir. No, yes. Well, I don't want that. I don't want that. And so we want to be surrounded by people who can say, I'm not sure I agree with that. We can have a great conversation about making sure we're on track. But what's the big deal about Silver Creek Church? And so I'm going to do something that most pastors never do, and it could be risky, and I might have to do some editing, so you may not see all this. We'll see, but I'm going to ask the audience a question, and I'm going to make it tough on all of us with no preparation whatsoever. But I'd like to hear a couple people tell me, if you've been coming for a while to Silver Creek Church, what is it you like about this church? I'm just going to put you on the spot. I'm going to throw it out there. Again, not bait. The smart pastor would have prepared a couple of ahead of time. Said, okay, I'm going to ask this question. But I thought, no, I'm just going to put it out there. I want to make it exciting, like on the cliffhanger moment of the movie here. But does anybody have something that you can throw out there?
The love that Silver Creek has for everybody, not just people that attend the church.
Okay. So love, you're talking about that you see among the people that go here.
I'm gonna
That and the community, like the love that we have for the going out into the community.
Okay.
I was gonna say that, and non-believers, like that's the mission, right? It's
Yeah.
To, like, be light, be love, and it doesn't matter who. And I would say that like family.
So for those of you online, I'll say this out loud so you can hear it too. Byron had said there's a love this church has for people in the church, but also the community. And Raven seconded that by saying, yeah, definitely the community, and for people who are believers, non-believers, everybody in between. Make sure I catch it. That's good. And that's probably as far as I want to go for right now. But that is, and that's what we're going to dive in today, is what is this and why did we start it? So we're going to talk about the church's mission, the church's values, and the church's vision. So if this is your first time here today, you picked a great week to come, because that's what we're diving into. So our mission is to inspire people to follow Jesus Christ. Plain and simple. I have been a part of churches where it's in staff meetings, we spent hours trying to craft this saying, and sometimes it turned into a short book where it's like 5 sentences long, and it's like, because we don't want to miss anything. But one thing I know is we got to keep it memorable, short and sweet, where anybody can just say, yeah, I know what our church's mission is. It's inspiring people to follow Jesus Christ, because that's what it all comes down to. There's a lot of things that we'll learn about as we learn about Jesus and learn about what Jesus taught, a lot of subjects of life that we can learn about. But when you come down to the irreducible minimums, the most important thing we can do as believers is help people to follow Jesus Christ, share our faith with others around us. Now, to do that, there's things that we'll say. We'll use words, of course. I mean, words is how we communicate. Words is what I'm using now to communicate with you. You're listening audibly, and if this was something written in a book, you'd be reading it, but as you read, you're hearing words in your mind, right? So words are powerful, words are important. We use words, but I think more importantly, that we do this through our actions of love. So it's through our words, but more importantly, through our actions of love. I don't know. There's a dance that goes with it, I'm sure. This is one of the few areas I agree with Elvis on. I think we could use a little less conversation, a little more action when it comes to this idea of inspiring people to follow Jesus Christ. Too many people just rely on the words. Too many people who call themselves Christians. Growing up in church my whole life, I've heard it and seen it my whole life, where we all look and act one way on Sunday morning, and then you see us on Tuesday or Wednesday, and you're like, do I know you? No, you can't be. It's sometimes it's like that. No, not always. Sometimes you find folks who are like, oh my gosh, they're the same person in both places. But words and actions are totally different. And actions are what draw people. The proof's in the pudding, some would say. Show me, don't snow me is appropriate for a day like today. It's something that my wife's father always said to me as I was, I'd say something, I really love Rachel. Well, show me, don't snow me. Okay, all right. All right, that's cool. So it's important. And to accomplish this, we've come up with some core values. And the values are kind of what we try to model our behavior, our codes of conduct, if you want to call it that. And so the first core value is we model our lives after Jesus. He's important. He's important. I know that there's the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. But Jesus, we believe here, is the hinge pin. Jesus is the reason that we have the assembly together. He's the reason that we can come before God. He became a bridge that we needed between us and God. And whenever I teach a message series, you're going to hear me coming back over and over to what did Jesus say? What did Jesus teach? What did Jesus do? Over and over and over, we'll look a lot in the New Testament scriptures, which are basically historical accounts of what actually happened, history events that happened that Jesus Christ was a part of. And so we're going to look at those historical events and say, okay, look, this is what happened then. Let's take what we can out of that to learn what we can do now in today's time. So anyone who could predict his own death and his own resurrection, I think is worth listening to. I think, anybody who is that precise, that exact, is worth listening to. And I'm going to show you just a little bit. I mean, there's a ton of scripture we could go into to explain this, but I'll just do a couple together. There's the book of Mark, the book of Matthew, the book of Luke that contain, but we'll just look at one verse from Mark and Matthew just today, just a little tip of the iceberg, so to speak. Let's look at Mark 8, verse 31. He then began to teach them, Jesus, then began to teach them that the Son of Man, now this is what Jesus always referred to himself as, the Son of Man, Son of Man, Son of Man. So when you see that term, Son of Man, Jesus is talking about himself. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders. This is before this happened, guys. The chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. So he's basically predicting ahead of time that, I mean, even naming the people, elders, chief priests, the teachers of the law, that he's going to be killed, but 3 days, he could have said in a few days. That might have been safer. I might have been, in a few days if I was just trying to guess, but no, 3 days, pretty exact, rise again. Now, when he says this, of course, everyone in the room is leaning in. If you remember those old E.F. Hutton commercials, I'm going to date myself now, but when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens. But when he says this, people are leaning in because it's like, what's he talking about? Did he just say die? I don't want to die. Do you want to die? I don't want to. No. Should we be here? Should we leave now? What's going on? But he's saying this ahead of time, knowing it may not be a popular thing, but he's saying it. And all along, you've got guys like Matthew. Matthew was a meticulous guy who's writing down what he's saying. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 17, verse 22. When they came together in Galilee, this is from Matthew's, he said to them, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised to life. And the disciples were filled with grief. Like I was saying a bit ago, they were a little perplexed, a little bit like, this isn't what we thought we were signing up for. But here's Jesus. Now this is two different accounts. Because if I asked Byron and if I asked Raven, what did I just say? You're going to hear basically the same thing, but maybe a little bit of different verbiage. And that's what's happening right here. This is the same account by two different people who are like, this is what he said. But they call it the important parts. He said 3 days. He said he'd be killed, and he said he'd be raised to life. Those are everybody heard that very clearly. This is what's going on. And he knew that it was going to be through these other people. So this is two accounts before it happened. And these guys, now I want to talk about Mark. Mark, believe it or not, was the first gospel that was actually written. If you didn't know that, Mark was the first gospel written, but Mark was not a disciple. He wasn't an eyewitness. He wasn't there to see it happen. He was a cousin of Barnabas, but Mark did travel with Paul, the Apostle Paul, and he did travel with Peter. And Mark actually was the writer for Peter because Peter wasn't able to write as eloquently or as good at this type of thing. So Peter dictated the book of Mark. Mark wrote it. So you're actually hearing Peter's account here, and you heard Matthew's account when you hear these two accounts. Now, Matthew, his original name was Levi. He was a tax collector, which were not much more respectable than they are today. Today, I don't hear many people say, where do you work? Oh, I work with the IRS. Oh, it's like, let me put these papers away. Huh? So how you doing? It's not, not a real, but back then it was way more like bad place to work. A divorce lawyer would be close these days, maybe, I don't know. It's the kind of thing that everybody was going, I don't know if I like what I heard what you did to somebody. But they were despised. Because here's what they were doing. Tax collectors were people that were part of the community. So think of it as people who lived in, Genesee, Saginaw County, but they were hired by people who took over or occupying our area. Let's just say the Russians. Again, I'm an 80s kid. So the Russians, let's just say, take over, and they're going to hire people from Genesee County, Saginaw County, to say, okay, we want you to spy on the people that live around you, your neighbors, your friends. You know them better than anybody, and I want you to make sure that we're getting our share. And by the way, at these times, it was about 30%. You think you're taxed bad now. It was 30% of everything was taxed. So, it was serious stuff. And so they were not liked because it was like, oh, here he comes. Here comes Levi. Oh, geez, walk the other way. Because you don't want to be ratted out, and you don't want him to come ask you for money. So they weren't popular. But these were people who wrote down two accounts of the same story where Jesus predicted what was going to happen. And since we, no spoiler alert here, but since we know the end of the book, we know what happened. And it happened exactly as he said. So when somebody can predict their own death in detail and it come to be, I think we can trust that person and believe in what they say they are. And that's Jesus Christ. The next core value we'll talk about is we live generously. We live generously. And I didn't put on here, we give to the church on purpose. I didn't put it that way. I didn't put, we must sacrifice from ourselves to give so that pastor can have a nice car, or, it's not like that. We live generously because this term is in all areas of our life. This term isn't to try to make the church a big production place. Jesus taught very clearly that we're to be generous for others. Flat and simple. And we give in lots of ways. We do give to a church because this is our gathering. This is where we decided to kind of pool our resources to create a vehicle to help us to enable more than we could do alone. We could do more together. So yeah, we're going to have a church and we're going to support our church in any way we can. But that's not the only way to give generously. And that's the only way to live. Live generously incorporates all areas of our lives, both as individuals and as a church. Now, one of the ways we do this, I know you guys have brought up some of this earlier. We have an event we do every year called Give, Serve, Love. And Give, Serve, Love is quite simply an offering that we receive where 100% of any money given in that offering goes outside the walls of this church. No percentage is taken out for anything here. It's all 100% goes right to causes all around us. And we love to partner with organizations and charities around us that are doing a bang-up job of doing really good things. This year we chose Foster Closet of Genesee County, which helps foster parents to supply the newly placed children with clothing and practical items like car seats and things you might not think about that, hey, guess what we need because the child's coming tonight. I know from firsthand experience, it's like, a lot of stuff to get all of a sudden. And they help to do that. Amazing organization. We partner with them. And of course, we continue partnering with the Saginaw City Rescue Mission, phenomenal organization who almost every single day is on 100% capacity for beds, even putting beds in hallways to make sure there's enough places for people to sleep that don't have a place to sleep that night, to make sure people have a place to get something to eat, they have nowhere else to turn for something to eat. We support them. And of course, the Underground Railroad of Saginaw County, which is an amazing organization that focuses on helping women specifically, women that come from battered relationships, or just women who just need a fresh start in life. And they really help them with the kids. They bring them into the shelter. They help them if they need a driver's license. They help them with a social security card. They help them get established. They help them get a job interview so they can get a good paying job. And they even watch the kids while they're going on the interviews. I mean, this place is phenomenal at helping out. So these are organizations that we believe are doing an incredible job around us. We partner with them. And Give, Serve, Love is one way to give kind of a big financial boost to them once a year. And then we choose to give them a little bit throughout the year as we can as well. Another thing that we've done here is a canned food drive. When coronavirus first hit in 2020, living in this area, one thing we knew was that there was a huge number of people around the Frankenmuth Birch Run region who rely on tips as a part of their income. A lot of big restaurants, a lot of people who are servers and waitresses and waiters that need a little bit of money because when the place is closed down for a week, those of us who have paychecks are like, well, okay, my paychecks come every 2 weeks, so on. Well, they're counting on tips that come in every day or every week. So these people are feeling it right now because they're used to having a little bit each week. So we knew, how can we help them immediately? So we rallied together and did a canned food drive. And we gave away like 35 weeks of groceries to people throughout the region. And that was incredible. I was so proud of our church for what we did there. Another thing that we do is we care for each other really well with things, and I'm reading here. I gotta stop a minute. It throws me off because I'm looking at the word meal trains, and I picture like choo-choo trains. And my mind starts going, okay, wait, trains? What do we have to do with trains? But no, it's not. It's not choo-choo trains. Meal train is a term that's used for when you give back-to-back meals for a family who's going through something, so that Tuesday's covered, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on. But we do stuff like that for people within our group, or even we've done it for people who don't even go to our church that we just knew about. Somebody knew somebody who needed a little bit of help, and it's a way that we can do that. This year we partnered with the Birch Run Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce in the Speedway. Right here at the Speedway, we did a trunk or treat event, which was really cool, and gave away a ton of candy. And I'm proud to say that we had first place for the booth setup. So yeah, I was pretty proud of that. It's pretty cool. Thank you to Tammy and all of her creative expertise on making that pull together. But parents and people were walking through and just saying thank you, because we were giving away full-size candy bars, which was another, no cutting corners here. No snack size, full size, right? We're gonna do it right. So we gave out some really good things to the community, to people who, we weren't there saying, okay, if you can have this if you come to church. No, I'm not doing that at all. We're just saying, hey, have this. Have a nice day. That's it. Have a nice day. And I love that we have a chance to do that. That's what we're talking about wanting to give to people. There's no bait and switch. It's no, you got to come here if you want it. Come a little closer. Gotcha. It's not like that at all. It's like, hey, we're going to come to you wherever you are. How can we help you? What's going on? We want to get involved in the community and help the community with what the community is doing. We don't want to tell the community, you got to come to our church if you want this. We're going to jump in with what they've already got going and be a part of it. It's a big part of why we do what we do. So, this is all part of living generously. We don't pass an offering plate. We have it that way from day one here. We have a gift station. Now, I don't want anybody to raise hands for this next question I'm going to ask. Keep your hands to yourselves. But how many of you have sat in a church somewhere at any point in your life, an offering plate came by and you weren't intending to give, but at the last minute as it came by, you're looking around and you find something to give. And you put it in there. It kept going. Again, don't raise your hands. But I've been there. And I think when you think about it afterwards, yes, there's a party that says, okay, it was cool that I gave, it was good that I gave, but why did you do it? It's just because you're worried about what other people are going to think. And I don't want to ever do something that's putting people in that position. I don't ever want to do that. I want us to feel like if we want to give something, we're going to do it out of generosity and love in our hearts, and we're going to enjoy doing it, but not out of guilt or out of wondering if anybody's looking or what they're thinking. Not at all. That's not what it's about. That's not what generosity is about. Jesus never asked for an offering when he collected people together to receive healings or to minister whatever to them. He never said, okay, now we're going to pass a plate. In fact, what he did was said, here, let's pass out some food. Here's some bread. And by the way, it doesn't run out. And here's some fish. And by the way, it didn't run out. That's what Jesus did. And so when it comes to the community, when it comes to having services, we never want to say, you must give here. We want to say, hey, we're going to give out. And that's what we choose. We choose to do it that way. We don't give out of fear. We don't give out of, God's going to get you if you don't do it. Look out. You better watch out. Better not pop. I'm telling you why. God is watching. No, it's not like that. It's not like, look out, because he's like a boogeyman's going to get you if you make the wrong step. It's like you're always like, oh no. Lightning strikes. It's not like that. God's not like that. Here's what Proverbs 11:25 says. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others, I love this, will be refreshed. That word, refreshed, isn't that a great word, right? Gum companies use fresh in their advertisements because you think, oh, that must be good. Fresh, but refreshed. I love that. I love that wording. And this is the NIV. I apologize. I knew I put that on there. That was my bad. I didn't put it on there. But it will be refreshed. And if you've ever watched somebody open a present that you spent time putting together, like I'm not just talking about whatever, but a pair of socks or, well, you always need underwear. No, it's not. It's like, but when you really think about something they really wanted, it was that exact thing they wanted. Nothing makes you feel better than you're almost more excited than they are as they're opening it because you know what they're about to open. They're going to love it so much. And they open that feeling is great. And that's generosity. That's compassion. That's the juice that God that puts in each of us, that motivates us, compels us to do the right thing, but it's magical what it does on others. Have you ever watched how it changes the dynamics in a relationship? Or if there was a little tension in the room, when that happens, if someone feels that generosity, it changes them. They can't help themselves. It's like, oh, just give me a hug, They just give you a hug, it changes completely. You'd be wanting to punch each other, and it's like, oh, come here. It changes everything. And that feeling, it refreshes. It refreshes. Think of it like this way too, like on a computer. What happens when everything gets kind of gummed up? Refresh the screen. And it gets better. It's all good. So, if you've ever given to anyone anonymously, that's better too. And I don't like to toot my own horn, but I will tell you about something that I did. I've done it a couple times. But there was this one time, this was so fun. I went into a Walmart. And I did it purposely, like in the middle of November, because I knew people might be doing some Christmas shopping and so forth. And I stood, and I try not to be too conspicuous, but I stood back away from the layaway area, so it's towards like the back side of the store usually. But I'm kind of like looking at clothes, but looking at people, not trying to be too obvious, but you're trying to look between the clothes, But and I'm waiting for okay, Lord, I want to find somebody who I can bless. I want to bless a person. But I've learned this from experience. I walked up to I'll tell you a true story. I was in Flint, and to tell you the area I was in, it was near Robert T. Longway and Davison. I used to live there off Wisconsin Avenue a number of years ago, and I'm in a grocery store near there, and I felt compelled one day to give some money to a woman that was checked out ahead of me. And it was one of those moments where normally I might have done it but I didn't quite catch it. Partly my fault probably too, because I was like, are you sure, Lord? It's like, oh, it's too late now. All right. And so she's walking out of the store, and I'm walking up behind her. I'm like, how do you say it? So I said, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me. And of course, remember where we're at, okay? So, probably people are a little on alert, late. And so she looks at me, and she's like, what you want? I said, hey, I just want it. She's like, stay away. She was almost going to whack me with her purse. I said, I just want to give you something. She's like, I'm taking nothing from you. And she's like, she thought I was a creepy, weird guy. I understand. I don't know. I thought I was dressed decently. But anyway, it doesn't always work good to go like that. So what I did at Walmart this time, I'm not going to approach the person. But what I'll do, I got this idea, I'll walk up to the cashier after they leave, I'll be in line, and I'll say, I'd like to pay for that person's remainder of their balance that just walked out. I'm like, what could go wrong, So I thought, this would be cool. So I'm waiting for the right person, then I'm like, okay, if there's a line, maybe 6 people, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. So I got in line, I'm behind a person, and of course, they did this, and this person had an assortment of toys and clothes, so I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Probably shopping for a family. What can I do to help out, And I'll be honest, the party was like, okay, I wonder how much it's gonna be. But I was like, no, I wanna do something good here. And so I waited in, and she finished, and she walked out, and there's still a few people behind me, so I don't wanna be too loud, because then everybody's gonna bum rush me, hey, mine too. I'm like, no, wait, it's one person. So, but I said, I'd like to pay for that person's balance on their layaway. Could I do that? And she was just like, the cashier was like, what? And she said, you really do? And I said, yeah. Do you know her? I was like, no, I don't know her. I said, can I keep it anonymous? She's like, yeah. Her demeanor changed. She was having kind of a cruddy day because it was busy and it's November, right? But I watched her demeanor change. The cashier was kind of like, okay, this is kind of fun, And so she's typing it in there and told me the balance, and I paid for it, did the thing, and I'm like, okay, and she's like, and this is the cool part. She's like, I actually know that person. I'll page her to come back here before she leaves the store. And so I kind of walk out, and I'm like, hanging out in the area, watching the area, because you might not always get to see what happens. But I watched this woman walk back up there as she told her that her balance had just been paid off in her layaway. And it was a beautiful moment because I was anonymous. I didn't want the thanks, but I knew I made a difference in somebody's life. Somebody had no clue who they are, and I don't know them, but what a difference it made. And so when you refresh others, you'll be refreshed. I got so much out of that. I was walking on sunshine. I was feeling so good that day, walking out of that store like, I could do anything, I want to do it some more. And it does. It makes you want to do it more because you realize I am actually becoming a little bit more like Jesus when I do this, because Jesus spent a life of just constantly giving away to others. You can have whatever I want. And so that was the cool moment. The next core value is we maintain teachable hearts. So important. We maintain teachable hearts. We're talking about us as a group of people who attend church here. We have to maintain teachable hearts, meaning that we're okay with somebody saying, I think you could grow in this area. Or we're okay with when a message is being taught, we're okay with saying, he could be talking about me. It's possible. Not just you, but he could be talking about me. It's easy to do that. But no, but it's asking, what can I take away from this? How could this apply to me? Even when it's something that, I might be talking about school teachers. And you could say, well, I'm not a school teacher, so that doesn't apply to me. But a teachable heart says, he's talking about school teachers, but what can I take out of that? What relates with me? What can I learn from that? Because here's why it's so important to be teachable. The reason it's important to be teachable is because God opposes the proud. And God doesn't often say in scriptures, like, I'm against something, but here's something that God says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. All of you, this is from Peter, by the way, all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. Because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Like he's going so far as to say, clothe yourselves with humility. Like in other words, let it get all over you. Like just make sure, like don't let any skin show. Like do your best, clothe yourself with humility because God opposes the proud. You will not grow in your faith without self-examination, without honesty and vulnerability about yourself. You've got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing and okay to say, I could have been wrong. Whenever my two kids fight, and yes, kids do fight. Whenever my two kids have a disagreement, get angry with each other, sometimes as a parent, I just want them to try to see it from the other person's what? Perspective. See it from their point of view. How are they feeling? Because when the kids do that, what happens? Something good happens. They understand each other a little bit more. It's a huge tool in parenting, but it's also important for us as believers in our growth to become more like Christ. Now, to talk about this more, being honest, being vulnerable, I want to look at Luke chapter 9. These are words from Jesus. Luke chapter 9, verse 46. And here's what it says. An argument started among the disciples. Imagine that. It did. An argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. I swear sometimes Jesus probably felt the way I do feel with my kids sometimes. An argument started amongst my kids. And here we go. Jesus, knowing their thoughts, took a little child and had him stand beside him. So they're kind of arguing a little bit with each other. Jesus is like, I can only imagine, he must have rolled his eyes at least a couple of times, right? I mean, like, yeah, I know. Right. So he grabs a child, pulls the child in next to him, right? Here's what happens next. Then he said to them, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me, meaning the big guy upstairs. For it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest. The least among you is the greatest. In these times, kids were thought of as very, and I hate to use this word, but unimportant. When they counted people, when they said there were 500 men, they only counted the men. Women and children didn't get counted. It was kind of like, oh yeah, that's the extras. The men is what counted. It's just the way it was in this culture. It was very chauvinistic. Just the way it was. But that's what they would do. And so people overlooked kids. People would tell the kids, hey, get out of here. Jesus is talking. Hey, back up. No, not right now. Go away. Constantly, the disciples were always pushing kids away because, let the men come in. And Jesus is like, bring that kid right up here. And so just by having the child stand there, the disciples were probably like, okay. They want to move the child because they're like, wait a minute, you shouldn't be doing this. And Jesus is like, I'm making a point. You stand back, Peter. Stand back, Matthew. He's making a point. He's like, look, this is important to me. Kids are important to me. So it's 2 points he's making. Kids are important to me. Women are important to me, guys. Everyone, we're all brothers and sisters together. We're all part of God's kids. And the least among you is the greatest, not the other way around, which put the disciples back on their heels. So he continued, we're going to look at Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, this is the Apostle Paul talking. So in Christ, we, though many form one body, and let me explain this. He's talking about like the body of Christ. This is often used, they often use the term of a body as describing different kinds of people. Like in other words, we're all one group, we're one assembly. But though many parts we form one body, each member belongs to all the others, and we all have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. So in other words, we all have abilities, we all have giftings, we all have something to contribute to make us better as a whole. In other words, if Byron is really good at working with kids, which he is, he loves it, it's in his heart to work with kids, then we're all better when Byron does that. And I don't say, hey, Byron, could you go out and scrape the sidewalk and put up the signs outside and da-da-da-da, and then we'll have somebody else with the kids. No, I'm going to be like, Byron, I want you to work with the kids. And can someone else go out there and get this? Because we try to do what we're really good at. And by doing that, by each of us having gifts that get used, that's what makes good things happen. We all have a purpose. We all have a unique and individual gift that no one else has. You have the ability of reaching someone that no one else can reach. Maybe it's a really difficult coworker at the office. Maybe it's a really difficult neighbor. Maybe it's a difficult relative that you're still thinking, oh, Christmas is how many days away till I have to see them again next year? Whatever it might be, there's a difficult person. We all know somebody difficult that makes it where we're just happy we can just move a little further away. Maybe you're the only one that God's created that could reach that person. You don't know. But God's created all of us with unique abilities to reach people that no one else can do. And we at this church allow you to grow in your passion, grow in what you love to do. We don't like telling people, here, why don't you just do something? No. If you want to get involved, we're like, no, we want to help you find the perfect fit for you. What is it you love to do? What's your passion? And that's for me especially, I love helping people find that and finding the place where they fit, their perfect fit. So, we have teachable hearts. The next core value is, it goes kind of hand in hand with it, we protect unity. We protect unity, and the two kind of go hand in hand. I love what Job chapter 11 verse 6 says, true wisdom has two sides. Man, I think we should make a t-shirt with this saying. True wisdom has two sides. And I'm not talking about fries and coleslaw, so those of you who are thinking about lunch, not those kind of sides, okay? I'll have two sides, but no. You may think that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about truth always has two sides. Truth always has two sides. The whole truth, the complete truth, isn't achieved until you found both sides. It's always that way. And what's hard for us is to accept that, because we say, well, no, I know what they're saying, but I saw it. My own two eyes. So just, can I speak? Let me just tell you what happened. No, I know, but let me talk. That's where we are when we're having a heated conversation with someone. We just want to, if you could just see what I see and hear what I say, you'd see the light. You'd understand. And the other person says, if you would just listen to what I'm trying to say, you'd see the light. You'd understand. And when we take that moment to come together and understand that, okay, wait, maybe I should listen a little bit. I've got two ears, one mouth. Maybe God did it this way on purpose. I don't know, something crazy. It would look weird, though, to have two mouths over here and a ear here. Picture it. It would look weird, talking. Anyway, that's stereo. But God did it this way on purpose. I'm sorry, I digress. He did this on purpose because we are supposed to listen more than we talk. And truth always has two sides. And so never find yourself in a position where you think it's my side that has the truth. There's always two sides. So be open. Be teachable. But protect unity. That's how you protect unity, is by being open. Our strength is found when we stand together. Everyone's stronger when we stand together. And I love, if you've ever watched, again, I'm going to date myself here, but if you've ever watched a show called The Andy Griffith Show, if you haven't, it's on YouTube, different places like that, but a great show that has a lot of great values taught about overcoming conflict and working through everyday life, parenting, a lot of great things. But one of the things that people often miss, that I catch, because I look at these little minute details, is the amazing relationship between Barney, this, if I could use the word, dim-witted deputy, who always made mistakes. He always blew it. If there was something to be blown, he blew it. He made the biggest mistake that caused something that Andy, the sheriff, had to try to fix constantly. And I have to ask myself sometimes, why did you fire him? If he was that incompetent of a deputy, and there was even episodes about that where the mayor would come in and say, we need to fire that Deputy Fife. He's always making mistakes. But why didn't you ever fire him? Why did he keep him there? If he made him look bad, he made the sheriff look bad a lot. Because when you hire somebody, that reflects on you. Why? This is questions I ponder. Why would he keep someone like that? And it reminded me that that's what a teachable heart is. That's what grace is. It's loving somebody who, in all their flaws and imperfections, Barney had a heart of gold. Barney was loyal to the nth degree. And Barney would give someone the shirt off his back if they needed it. So Barney was gold, but too easy to see the mistakes. If you allowed the mistakes, it would hide it. You never see the gold that was inside of him. But I think that in that story, the sheriff saw that. And that relationship was incredible because of it. So we protect unity. Even when someone makes a mistake, even when somebody does something wrong, we protect unity. We stand with each other. We're better standing together than we are apart. That's what love is. The next value, the core value, is we love people different than ourselves. This is huge. We love people different than ourselves because it's easy to love people who are just like me. I love movies. No surprise to many of you. I love movies. I love going to the movies. I probably go once a week. It's my thing. I don't watch sports. There's a lot of things I don't do. I don't have a lot of hobbies, but a hobby for me is, ask me movie trivia, we can talk. But I love movies. I love like examining the plots, the antagonists, protagonists. I love looking at parts of the movies and the stories behind them and the storytelling. Great storytelling is done sometimes through movies. For me, that's something I love to do. But the thing about me is different from you. And if you love movies too, I can say, oh, let's hang out together. It's easy for me to do that. But what if somebody says, well, I'm into, I'm into crossbow shooting. I've never done crossbow shooting. I don't know, well, okay. I might have a little hard time focusing and keeping up with you on what you're talking about because I don't know all the terms, don't know all the things about that. Now that's saying something nice, but what if it's a person who, I love Michigan State. Now I've just created division in the room because now there's somebody saying, I love Michigan. What do we do with this? You're my pastor. I can make it easy and say, I don't care for Ohio State. And kind of everybody's going to go like, yeah, let's talk about that. There's things you can find that are easy to take a unity stand together on. But it's not always so easy when people are different. People vote differently. People buy different cars. Some people say, I'm a Ford man, I'm a Chevy man, I'm a Chrysler. No, I'm whatever else there are. There's people who will buy different cars and even stand strong on, no, you shouldn't have bought that. That's garbage, and they all have acronyms for everybody. But the point is, we love people different than ourselves because Jesus modeled that life for us. And Jesus was asked questions all the time about this. And there was one time where there was an expert in the law. And whenever the Bible says expert in the law, it's referring to somebody who spent their whole life studying the law of Moses. The law of Moses was the law that Moses carried out with the Israelite people to put them straight on track. Because if you remember, they were messed up people. If you remember what happened with them, I'll just give you a quick snapshot. Moses is up on a mountain, and he's up on this mountain, it's so amazing. He's communing with God, praying, and God shines his light on him so much that Moses' face was glowing when he came down off the mountain. So if my face ever glows, I'm sure you're all gonna look a little closer, like what's going on, And it's not just from the tanner. It's from this is like a glow that's like almost like beams, right? And despite that, 16% of the people said, I'm not down with what you're saying. Instead, I want to make a calf out of gold, and I'm going to worship this calf out of gold. It's like, are you stupid? What are you doing? But even in those moments, people had differing ideas of what I'm going to do. So it doesn't matter, but Moses had this law. And so these people studied this law. Like they knew it backwards and forwards. Like they could recite it. They had it memorized. So this person, this expert in the law, wanted to ask Jesus a question, obviously to trip Jesus up, to try to catch him in a loophole, to try to show that he was wrong or that he wasn't who he really said he was. So we're going to look now at Luke chapter 10. And when we get into the story, you're going to recognize it because you've probably heard it before. But Luke chapter 10, verse 25. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, talking to Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. Because it's like, what do you say about it? Continues on. He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, which is quoting the law of Moses precisely. Jesus knew what he would say. He continues on. You have answered correctly, Jesus said. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself. So the guy asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? To Jesus. And it continues on. In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now this is where Jesus starts telling a parable story. When he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away. And by the way, when Jesus talked about this was a commonly traveled route from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's like saying, he was going from I-69 from Lansing to Flint. And everybody's like, oh yeah, been on that a number of times. Know exactly what you're talking about. But this was like really bad. This was like, I don't want to say specifically, but I don't know where bad areas are, but this is such a bad area that people were attacked and mugged all the time. Your money was taken, so if you traveled that way, you typically went with a group of people, safety in numbers. So when Jesus is saying this, everybody's like, oh yeah, I got a cousin once, or oh yeah, my neighbor, oh yeah, I'm still kind of limping from that. So everybody knew what he was talking about. They've all seen it firsthand. They stripped off his clothes, beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. Now, if you've ever been to a big city like New York, this is something you've heard people say. Don't get involved. If you see something going down, go the other way, because you don't want anything to happen to you too. Avoid trouble. And so the priest is doing what many of them would do in the crowd, going, yeah, that's sound wisdom. Go on the other side. Probably some are thinking, yeah, that's what I did last week. That's smart. And Jesus is pulling him in. So he continues on. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by the other side. Levite being like, this is a really religious, very respected person, passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, now let me explain a Samaritan. A Samaritan was, if you're a Michigan fan, a Michigan State fan. If you're a Michigan State fan, they were a Michigan fan. A Samaritan is a person who they were looked down because they were different than you. These were people who, this was a racial tension. This was a tension going on at the time that the Samaritans were less than everybody else. As he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, which was a common practice to treat wounds, by the way, for disinfecting and treating wounds. Then he put the man on his own donkey, which, do you want to put a person who's got all kinds of wounds oozing out into your nicely upholstered car? Well, he puts him on his own donkey. That's what he's pointing out, because these people were so sensitive about blood. If someone had blood, they were like, don't get it on you. Like, they really felt like it was like very disease carrying, and like you were unclean and impure. There was lots of terms. So they avoided it like a plague. But he put him on his own donkey, which is, everybody in the crowd's probably going, oh, really? Like, did he put a blanket over it first? Like, they're wondering, but it's like, what? Like, who does this? Brought him to an inn and took care of him. Continues on. The next day he took out 2 denarii, which is a couple $100, okay, so it's pretty good, and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which is, be the same thing as saying, here's my visa, use the charge anything this person needs. It's on me. To which everybody's looking and going, who is this? Jesus said to them, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the whole crowd was silent. A pin drop could have been heard, because they were all expecting an opposite answer. They weren't expecting this. That somebody that they thought was a Samaritan, because it's probably safe to say there weren't very many Samaritans in the crowd, if any at all. He was talking to a bunch of Levites. He was talking to a bunch of priests at the time. So they're all like, he just called us out. I mean, he's like, who is the neighbor? So now this guy who had all the questions is just kind of going, walking away quietly off the side, because Jesus just, did the mic drop with that whole statement right there. We love people different than ourselves. So don't make assumptions about people just because they're different. Because where they live, how they vote, their favorite college, their favorite sports team, even if they're Lions fans. I know it's been a tough year. It's been a tough century. I remember as a kid, it was cool to have the Lions coat with Billy Sims' name on the back and stuff like that. Like, remember that? I mean, that was a big thing. Like, yeah, and now it's like everybody like, Lions, they don't talk about the Lions at all. I'm not a sports fan, so if I'm off, I apologize, but I do know that much, at least. I don't think there's a great, huge following at this moment. But no matter how people are different than us, maybe they work in a place that you just think that's a stupid place to work, or you had a bad experience with somebody at that place, so if they work there, they must be bad too. By a person's race, or even by a person's religion. oh, they're Catholic. What, oh, really? Oh, yeah, they're Catholic, Or Jehovah's Witness, so Jehovah's Witness, they live over there, yeah. Mennonite, whatever, what is Mennonite? I don't know. They're Mennonite. But whatever it might be, it's easy to kind of pass people off as, well, just want to tell you something about them because then you know what I mean. Don't do that. This is what Jesus is trying to teach to us. This is what Jesus is trying to say. This is why we protect this value of loving people other than ourselves, different than ourselves, who think or act or dress differently than ourselves. Even religion. I'll never forget the time I was at an eye doctor's office, and I'm going to make this a quick, brief story because I've shared it a few times before, and it was just a day like any other day, and I'm in this eye doctor's office, and I would never have thought that I'd find myself sitting face to face with a Shiite Muslim. I would have never thought that walking in that day, but I was, and it wasn't that way. It was just one of these ways where I was just being friendly, it was one of those days where I was praying before I got to the office about, Lord, I want to be extra good at being friendly today and not just being busy and getting my appointment accomplished and getting on to the next thing on my list, but help me to take my time to be friendly with everybody I come in contact with today. It was one of those days where I was like trying hard. And so I'm being friendly with this guy, and it was so outstanding to the guy. It was so different. It was so peculiar, like not usual, that the guy stopped in the middle of the eye appointment and said, like he's trying to figure out, what is it about you? What are you reading? Because I had a book with me. And so I began to explain that we're getting ready to start this church. And I'm describing, as I would to anybody, I didn't know who he was, but I'm describing the church that we're going to start and all that. And after a while, he says to me, and he feels like he needs to tell me now, because he says, well, I'm actually Muslim. And in fact, I'm of the group, the Shiite Muslim, which is the most devout and radical there are. If my mother even knew I was talking to you, she would disown me. He was living at home with his mother, obviously, at the time. And so he's taking a chance to even talk to me, but he wanted to know more about what is this that makes you different? He wanted to find out more about why was I treating him so nicely? Because Christians don't treat Muslims nicely. He knows the rule book. So what is different about you? And we began in a conversation. We're supposed to be doing my eyes, but I didn't care about the eyes, and he didn't care about the eyes. We were having a conversation because I had never had a chance to talk to someone who was of that faith before, face to face. So I've got questions, he's got questions, and this all takes place in 10 minutes. So a lot of stuff happened in a little bit of time. But we began sharing and having a friendship bud and develop right there in that doctor's office because I was being friendly. And he was friendly in return. And it finished off with him looking at me and saying, because I'm describing to him these values about what this church is going to be that we're starting. He said, I would go to a church like that. What? I'm like, at the moment, I almost passed out. I remember the moment saying, what's happening right now? God, help me. Don't let me shake out loud. It was because I couldn't believe this. This is incredible. This is what I would pray for. And so I left him with my information, and I haven't heard from him since. But all I know was that a seed was planted that day. All I know was one simple act of kindness. I was just being friendly. Had a person ask questions they would normally not ask anyone because they're not allowed to ask questions. It's like against the rules. Don't ask questions. Don't get to know Christians. Stay away from Christians. And he was getting to know me that day because he could and he wanted to. So that's our value. Our last value we'll talk about today is we aim for excellence in all we do. And this one speaks for itself. We aim for excellence in everything that we do. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. In other words, we're not doing it to make ourselves look good to you, not looking at it for to be rated number one by the Chamber of Commerce for our booth display. We're doing it, give it all your heart, since you know that you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward in the Lord Christ you are serving. In other words, we're doing it for God because we serve him. We want to do excellence in everything that we do because excellence attracts. Mediocre gets overlooked. You pass by mediocre. Somebody say, did you see that mediocre? I missed it. Did you see the excellence? Oh, I saw it. Did you see it? Oh, I saw it. That was incredible. Excellence attracts. Mediocre gets overlooked. I dislike the saying. People have said this to me before. Don't sweat the small stuff. That's good enough. It kills me to hear that. God gave us his best, and we can certainly give our best back to him. Can we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity that we've had to start this church and to be a part of this body of believers, and for these core values and these beliefs that you've placed in our hearts to share with others. Lord, would you just continue to guide us, lead us, and direct us? I pray, Father, that for each person here, that, Father, that we would leave here today with a little extra pep in our step, knowing that we have something that the world needs. We all have a piece of it. It's a piece of this light. It's a piece of this salt that makes things better. That makes things brighter. And help us, Father, to be a part in someone's life to make their day better and brighter in what we say and what we do. We thank you for all this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So Silver Creek Church, we're not in existence to try to make ourselves look good or to make a name for ourselves. We're here to make Jesus Christ known to the world, so that the world can know about him and know about the amazing freedom in a life found through him. So as we close, if you'll stand with me, we're going to sing one more song with our friends from North Court Community Church, and then we'll dismiss.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. And I love your voice. You have led me through the fire and the darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, and I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. Oh, all my life you have been faithful. Yeah. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. So with every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, either here or online, and we will see you back here next week.